Hey everybody, welcome back to Hell Brent for Leather. Brent here, as usual. Got a special guest on tonight. My longtime close personal friend, Tammy Zepp, who I've known for quite a number of years now. We met at Progpower, either 4 or 5, we can't remember. But it's been a long time, and she's good people. She's not as big of a metalhead as she used to be, but she's certainly been through it all and seen it all. And how's it going?
Hey Brent, well thanks for having me on. It's going great. I'm happy to be able to join you on your podcast. I'm really excited for it. You know, all these years that I've known you, I feel like this is something that was inevitable. So I'm so glad that you're doing this. It just makes perfect sense.
Well,
Brent talking about metal. I love it.
you were one of the catalysts for me wanting to start this because you've kind of put that bug in my ear for a few years now. Jen was the ultimate catalyst. She just wouldn't shut up about it, and finally I relented and did it because the Bastard Cast. I was doing that, but it's a much different animal than this is. And she was like, you need to get on and talk about music and everything else, and kind of get that side of you out. So that's kind of what I did. I already had the equipment and such, so the only investment I needed to make was time and $20 a month to host it on Lisbon.
Nice.
But so yeah, we met like I said, Progpower 4 or 5. You were living in Michigan and making the trek down to Progpower. I was living in Atlanta and making the trek down to Progpower. It was, or not in Atlanta, in Athens rather, making the trek down to Atlanta for Progpower. So it was slightly easier for me, obviously. That was actually still a point to where we drove home every night and drove back the next day.
Oh wow.
We drove because it was only an hour and a half, 75 minutes if there was no traffic, and we hauled ass. So
Nice.
we jumped the car and haul ass back to Athens and then come back the next morning because being young 18, 19-year-old kids trying to get a hotel room, not the easiest thing. And
No.
then eventually started staying with Amanda some in Atlanta just because she was a good friend of ours, and she went home instead of getting a hotel. And later on, she started getting a hotel and such just because it was easier. But
Sure.
yeah, so, but for you, obviously you had to stay in a hotel because you weren't going back to Michigan every night. And so
It certainly was.
you got to have a little more fun at the Progpower parties and such at an earlier time than I did. I didn't really start going to the Progpower parties until probably 10 years ago. So, what kind of earlier memories do you have of Progpower? What were some of the bands that drew you there, and why? Why did you start going? How did you hear about it? Stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, cool. How I heard about Progpower to begin with, to be honest, I'm not sure that I can remember that far back. I know I'd started getting into power metal bands like, Blind Guardian, Angra, Gamma Ray. I had these like bootleg burn CDs because it was so hard to get anything legit back then, and I was so excited for them, and I was like, who are these guys? And I think I was probably looking them up online and found something about them coming to town, at least Blind Guardian and Gamma Ray, because they came to Progpower 3, and that was the first one that I went to.
Yeah,
So
that was the first one I
I,
knew about, and
yeah,
my buddy was like, "Holy shit, dude! There's this festival coming to Atlanta, blah blah blah, Blind Guardian and Gamma Ray," and I was like, "What? What? Blind Guardian and Gamma Ray? Holy fuck!" And so we made this pact that we would go together, or neither of us would go. And then I told my mom, I was like, "Hey, there's a music festival coming to Atlanta, and I really want to go." Blah blah blah. She was like, "Well, if you can find tickets for like $20 or $30." I was like, that's not how that works at all. And so, long story short, I didn't get to go, and Casey went without me, despite the pact.
oh no,
But it wound up working out because he met some people, and it wound up working out. So I've been bitter as fuck for years that he did it, but I got to see all of the bands at Progpower that he saw later on. Not necessarily great sets, because like I never got to witness this, but I know you did, the infamous Devin Townsend Progpower 3 set
yeah,
with progressive nipples.
progressive nipples. That's
Exactly.
right.
I didn't get to witness
There,
that.
I was there. I can recall it. I can literally see it in my head. Right.
I didn't get to see it at that time, but I have seen Devin's lunacy on stage since then. And, you know, I've seen Angra, which, you know, Angra is more your thing than my thing. They never really did it for me. There were a couple records that I kind of liked, but on the whole, I'm like, okay, whatever. But Gamma Ray and Blind Guardian, my God. I've seen both now. I've seen Gamma Ray twice, Blind Guardian 2 or 3 times. So those were the main ones I would have wanted to see. Angel Dust. I didn't get to see DC Cooper's band. Silent Force. Is that who played at 3?
Of course. Yeah.
Yep.
I can't remember when they played, but they did play.
I think it was 3 because I think DC Cooper played later on his own. But I think it was Silent Force at 3 because I didn't get to see Silent Force, and Infatuator kicked my ass when that record came out.
Oh my God, it's been so long. You know, now that I'm thinking back, I think I remember being aware of Progpower 1 and 2, but just having simply no means to go there, you know, or thinking, oh, it's all the way in Georgia, you know, I'm not going to go there. You know,
well, the first one was
I
in
was
Chicago.
still in college at the time, so it's not like I was loaded, you know, to make a trip for, you know,
right,
all the way across the country for an expensive ticket for a weekend.
Well,
I think it was just out of my realm at that time, and then by 3, I finally was able to go.
The first one was in Chicago. But yeah, the second one,
right, yeah.
or were the first 2 in Chicago?
No, I can't remember.
I know for a fact the first one was in Chicago, but I don't know where the second one was. But 3 was definitely at Center Stage, or back then it was known as Earthlink Live. And then it went back to Center Stage, which is the name it always had back, you know, to when WCW and the NWA was filming wrestling shows there. So that's another thing that you and I might be able to talk about, is how that place is a wrestling mecca, and how we've both got to walk around backstage in the same places where, you know, Sting and Ric Flair and the Horsemen and everybody else would have been able to be at the same time. So that's pretty fucking cool.
That is really cool. I mean, I think maybe you might have more to say about it than I do, because I was only ever in the backstage, like the catacombs of Center once, maybe twice.
Okay.
But I mean, you actually worked at the festival as like crew and staff, you know, like with being on Lance King's team and stuff. And I never was, you know, but I had VIP, I think twice, with Camelot Nissan, and so those were the only times that I was able to go around in the back. But I didn't really do much of that, anyways, because there's enough to see out front, you know. And you know, I walked around in the back, but you know, I remember seeing all like these pictures and stuff, all like the wrestling history and stuff on the walls of the hallways and everything. And you know, I was a big wrestling fan around that time too. Yep. So I did think that was pretty cool. But I didn't know that venue as a wrestling place until somebody told me. You know, like Madison Square Garden, you know, is a music place, and well, I guess all events, but I didn't know that Earthlink Live had anything to do with wrestling. I wasn't aware of that until somebody told me, and so then that was pretty cool to find out. And then, you know, look to your left and there's Snowy Shaw, you know.
Yeah, honestly, I guess I didn't reconcile just how much history Center Stage had with wrestling, because when Center Stage was doing wrestling, I was like between the ages of not born yet to like maybe 8. So I wouldn't have really recalled that Center Stage was the thing. I would have just remembered watching, you know, WCW on the Superstation at 6:05 on Saturday nights and stuff like that. But Andy Ladano and Hoyt and Paul Cashman are the ones that kind of clued me in on that. And I was like, holy fuck, cool. You're right. And then you'd go back and see a lot of those old tapings and stuff like that you can find now. And it's like, goddamn, they're on wrestling in a ring that's roughly where the stage would be for, you know, the same venue where I got to see Isan destroy everyone. That's one of the best sets in Progpower history. I had forgotten that you were a sponsor for that, actually.
Yeah, I was front and center, or no, I was like front and like a little to the left. I won't forget that. That was one of those moments that you remember your life before that, and then you remember your life after that.
Well, yeah, it's like, you know, Progpower, fucking, all of these, you know, unicorn riding fucking Dragon Master bands and shit play there, and then you're your meadly fucking Pain of Salvation type bands. And then you get bands that just blow your fucking mind that don't really belong there, but yet they kind of belong there. Isan
The
being one of them.
oddball.
Isan doesn't really belong there, but he's got enough progressive elements to him to where he can be justified to be there, and he completely destroyed everyone. The same thing with Mercenary the first time they ever played. They blew my fucking mind. I mean, they're progressive death metal, but yet it worked. And it worked very well, and people that, oh, I don't like that kind of thing, fucking loved it. So,
Well, and like Primordial,
yes,
too.
oh my god, seeing Coffin Ships played live there was incredible. Fuck. All right, so yeah, while we're on the subject, who's some of the other bands that have played Progpower? Overkill. I don't think you were there.
Sure, I was.
Were you? Okay, I
was on
couldn't.
the floor for that.
I couldn't remember when you kind of had to stop going, but Overkill.
I can't remember which number it was. I think it was like 15 or 16 was when I stopped going. Because I went to about 10 of them. So maybe it was like more like 13 when I stopped. Because I started at 3 and then just kind of went. But yeah, I was definitely there for Overkill. It was like the only time I remember there actually being moshing at Progpower was during Overkill.
Did you go nonstop until you stopped? Did you miss a year?
Correct.
Okay.
No, I didn't miss a year.
I haven't missed a year either, but I think I'm going to miss the upcoming year.
Really? Did they do it last? They didn't do it last year.
No, they didn't. He postponed it until like next summer or something. But I don't think I'm gonna be able to go. I don't know if I want to. To be
did he like postpone the same roster or just scrap it and say we'll see what happens?
The same roster, but a couple of bands have had to drop out. Like Night Flight Orchestra is not gonna be able to do it, which really sucks because I really wanted to see them. But yeah, so Overkill, Bobby being up there and just asking people if they're progressive enough for, are we progressive enough for ya? And what was the other one? Atlanta, Progpower, we're happy to be here. Hell, at my age, I'm happy to be anywhere. I love that guy. I do, and they put on a hell of a show every time I see them.
That was a great show. I wasn't super familiar with them. Like, I mean, I know everybody knows who Overkill is, but I wasn't familiar with them. But that day, that was a hell of a set, I tell you. Yes. I don't forget it. I can picture that one in my head, too.
They showed up with something to prove, even though in the metal world, they've got nothing to prove. They showed up to that crowd going, hey, motherfuckers, we're here, and you're going to like it.
I think nobody was complaining, though. No, everyone's like, okay.
No, I don't think anyone was complaining at all. But so, all right, so other bands that didn't fit in, but somehow fit in. Overkill, Primordial, Isan.
Sure. I have one on the tip of my tongue.
You know what? I was going to say Mercenary, but I honestly think Mercenary fit in because they didn't have primarily death vocals. They're kind of progressive power metal with a little bit of death tinge. So I'll say they fit in because if I say they didn't fit in, then I'd have to say that Into Eternity didn't fit in, and Into Eternity fit in great.
Yeah, you can't say that. I'm drawing a bit of a blank, to be honest. I think I'd need to just look at the rosters.
Mustache,
yeah.
They didn't really fit in, but by the time their set was done, everybody was screaming and yelling about how great it was. Same thing with Freak Kitchen. I mean, Freak Kitchen is... I mean, they're proggy, kind of, sort of, but not in the traditional sense. I mean, Matthias Eklunda is running around on the stage singing about Swedish dildo music. And, playing slide guitar with vibrators and throwing them out into the crowd. I mean, that's not a prog
I've got one for you.
Okay.
Amorphous.
I will agree with you on that.
They were the oddball their year.
Yep.
And I just remember being completely floored by it. I had already liked them anyways. They were right up my alley. I knew all about them already, So when they got announced, I couldn't believe it. One that I wished would have happened but didn't happen, and you might already know what I'm going to say. And I'm going to try to not cry after I say it. Arcturus.
Yeah, that really bummed me out. And it didn't bum me out so much that they didn't show up. It bummed me out in the circumstances in which they didn't show up, which spoiled them ever being able to show up again.
Exactly. It kind of ruined a lot of. It's one of those things like, when you find out that your hero is an asshole,
Yes.
and you're like, God damn it! Couldn't we have just not known that? Like, just be the rock star on stage that you are. That would be great. And let's just keep that illusion up. I don't want to know that you're kind of a jerk otherwise. And that was a bummer. That whole situation just could have been handled a lot differently. And that really was I felt disillusioned after that, and I was so bummed out because I had never been more excited for a band at Progpower besides like the first year, Blind Guardian, Gamma Ray, and Pain of Salvation. Like I remember never being more excited than when Arcturus was announced. I think I screamed so loud like my voice broke. And
Yeah.
I just started crying right there, like a grown woman crying in the middle of center stage just at an announcement.
Well, for those
But
of you who might not be aware of what happened, basically, Arcturus gets announced, and it's a big fucking deal. And they were going to be a U.S. exclusive. They weren't playing anywhere else in the U.S. that year. And then just one day, they were like, hey, sorry, we have to pull out of the festival due to unforeseen circumstances. And then come to find out, they were playing a different festival in Europe that same weekend. And so they basically told Glenn to fuck off and did another festival in Norway, I think, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And it's
Which
like,
wouldn't have been really so bad. I understand getting, double booked by accident, having to make a hard choice, but I feel like the attitude that they gave Glenn and Progpower was so sour that it really soured my feelings towards the group.
Yeah, it's one thing for an inattentive manager to fuck up and double book something. It's another thing entirely when it seems like it was done almost maliciously.
Right, yeah, and then the attitude afterwards was like, it wasn't very good. It was poor sportsmanship, if you will.
Yes.
And I just didn't care for that. That was a real big bummer. And yeah, now they'll never be back, and that was probably their only real hope of coming to the US, let's be honest. But I don't even care anymore.
In terms of things that maybe were rumored to happen at Progpower or never actually really happened at Progpower or maybe could have happened at Progpower, taking Arcturus out of the equation, if there was something you could have seen at Progpower that you really wanted to see and it never happened, what would that have been?
Ariane, full performance of any of the albums. I don't care, whoever was there and could do it.
Sure.
Or Avantasia, same thing. I wanted to see Demons and Wizards too. That's like one of my great white whale groups that just didn't work out for me, anyways. But
I tried.
Yeah, it was definitely Avantasia and Ariane.
I tried with Demons and Wizards. Damn it, I tried.
Yeah, that like I said, that's they're on my my bucket list of bands. If that ever happens again, I will.
Yeah, unfortunately, at this point, it's not going to.
I know,
but
yeah, maybe I don't care anymore either on that one too. But
yeah. Mine would be the Nevermore reunion that didn't happen.
Oh,
because they were reportedly supposed to have a Dreaming Neon Black lineup reunion, which would have been, the core band and Tim Calvert. Mm-hmm. And they were going to do Progpower, like it was not set in stone, but it advanced talks. And then somehow the rumor goes, and I don't want to necessarily spread a false rumor, but at the same time, this is the rumor that I've heard from numerous people, as well as people who were in the know, said that Angela Gossow put the kibosh on it because Jeff was playing in Arch Enemy at the time, as he still is, and her being Arch Enemy's manager said, no, he's not allowed to do any outside projects.
Oh, what a bummer.
So, if that's true, that fucking bitch is on my shit list forever and always. I can't forgive that.
No.
Because that would have been the opportunity for me to see probably my second all-time favorite record played in its entirety and, been the closest thing I would have gotten to experiencing a godlike moment. So if it's true, fuck that bitch. If it's not true, hey Angela, call me. You pretty cute. But yeah, I heard that from a couple people within the Progpower camp, and I want to say I heard that from Jim. So yeah, but it is what it is. Um, so kind of tell me about your musical journey a little bit. Like, how did you get into metal, and you know, your involvement in the scene, both in Michigan and in Texas? You know,
Sure.
kind of talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
Who the fuck
So
are you?
actually,
You know,
what was that?
I said, who the fuck are you? You know.
I'm nobody. I'm nobody. No. Um, so I actually grew up hating metal, but I think that was just because I was listening to what my parents thought about metal, and I was just a kid, and so I didn't know any better. But until like 13, and I heard Motley Crue on the radio. No, I was 10, and I heard Motley Crue on the radio. But what's funny is before that, my aunt had 3 cassette tapes that somehow ended up in my possession. It was Kiss Alive 3, Whitesnake Self-Titled, and Def Leppard Hysteria. And I played those into the ground. There was actually one summer when I was a teenager that I just, from the moment I woke up until I fell asleep, it was Def Leppard Hysteria on repeat over and over and over again with my little tape deck and flipping it over every so often. And so I was listening to all of
Hey,
that while also listening to like Michael Bolton and Richard Marx and Phil Collins and Genesis and stuff like that and classic rock. So it was always sort of there, but it didn't really um, catch me until high school when I started listening. I heard I heard Dream Theater and Queensryche on the radio actually in like '94. Believe it or not, I grew up in a place that had a cool enough radio station that was playing Dream Theater and Queensryche on the regular, and so I just grew from there, loving those kinds of things. But when you think that my real first metal was Dream Theater and Queensryche, that set the standard for me. So no wonder I love like prog metal and power metal, right? And they're still two of my favorite groups, even if maybe I don't really follow their most recent stuff. Um, but then after that, it just kind of flowed into more of progressive and power metal things. Like I said, I got I got into the European stuff and the South American stuff, like the Blind Guardian, the Angra. They just sort of came my way over the internet. That was in college, and then after college, I'm really skipping through 30 years of history here, but um, I had also kind of been doing a little bit of radio stuff with my dad, actually. I don't think you knew this, Brent, but my dad was affiliated with a radio station in Colorado for a little bit, and we would just do a little show. He would do talking about something, and then he had me play some music and introduce it. And it was like just 1 or 2 songs a week, and we'd send the tape in. And then later on, another radio station had us come in and do a whole segment. It was pretty cool. So I got used to radio and just kind of being involved. And then in after college, I got in touch with these guys. I think it was like over MySpace or something. It was back in the time of MySpace. They had a organization that they called Rock the Madhouse, and one of them was in like Illinois and the other was in Arizona or something, and they had a website, and their idea was to get people in as many places as possible who work in their local scene, and then we all network together. So like we could ship our bands out to each other, so I can be like, hey, guy in Arizona, I've got this band coming into town. Hopefully, the hope was that we would have enough states in between that we could all work as a network. And then they hosted a website, and then so I got involved with that, and like the next day I printed up business cards and I started approaching local bands in Michigan because I was already going to their shows. And I just said, hey, here's the deal, I want to put together concerts with you guys and promote it on this website. And I made a little MySpace page too, and somehow it all worked out. I don't know. I mean, I just walked up and I started asking people, and you'd be surprised what you can accomplish just by asking. You ask the venue that you go to all the time and that and you'd be like, hey, what does it take to host a show here? I want to put together a couple bands and just host a show. And they sorted out. So I just started doing that. And in Michigan, the local scene was very prominent. A lot of people were into the local bands. There were a lot of them. It was a lot of death metal. A lot, like primarily death metal, at least what I was seeing, the part that I was running in. And a lot of the musicians really would come out and support each other. So if you had a local show with 3 or 4 local bands on it, the whole musical crowd came out to see them. And so you'd have all these other bands there. So I just go talk to them. Hey, I've got this other gig over at this venue in Detroit I've been hitting up, come play. So after a little while, I kind of built up my little mini, whatever you call it, my little section of Rock the Madhouse. And I held a music festival for a couple of days called MadFest in Michigan. And it was actually over the course of my birthday too, but then right after that, I was moving to Texas because what I was doing in Michigan caught the attention of a national booking agency who worked with kind of mid-tier bands. And so they wanted me for them, and they were based in Texas. So that's why in 2006, I put everything in my car that I wanted, got rid of the rest, and I moved to Texas. But I didn't just go straight to Texas. I went down to Atlanta and went to a Progpower, and then after Progpower weekend, then I drove to Texas. So that was a lot of fun and really interesting and kind of scary. Can't believe I did it, but I'm glad that I did it because it was an amazing experience. And then when I was in Texas working with the tour agency, they were a national booking company, so we were trying to book a handful of bands across the country, bands that were also on their management company. So it wasn't anyone that I was familiar with at the time, but I got to know them, and that was all right. It didn't really work quite as well as I had hoped or that I was promised, and it was a little bit more of a lower operation than I thought that it was. So that was my bad for not checking it out. But at the time, I could only check it out so much. I just had to either go and do it or forever wish that I did. So when I was in Texas, what I mostly did was trying to book the bands across the country. But then I was also heavily involved in the local music scene just as a, it's going to sound stupid, but as a presence. So like I wasn't just, hey, I'm a fan. There was like kind of talent scouting a little bit and like recruiting, and also just, hey, I'm here representing this company. But then I also decided that apparently wasn't enough. So I got involved in music reviews and writing for a local music newspaper down there in Texas. And that's how I met Andy Ladano. No, it's not. That's not how I met Andy Ladano. Sorry. I got into it because of Andy Ladano. I knew Andy from the Progpower forum. So when everybody knew that I was moving to Texas, he's like, I live here. I'll show you around. I'm like, sweet. Built-in friend. So we met up. We went to a couple of different shows with some local folks there. And then, then he got me hooked up with the Harder Beat newspaper. And we would go to these shows together because he would be the photographer. He was a photographer for them. And I would do the writing of the review. So that was pretty cool. And then while I was there, I also got into a lot of Japanese rock and metal. That was like the height of the J-rock and visual kei scene. And so I was writing for magazines in Japan and magazines in the US about Japanese music. And then I moved to Minnesota, and I haven't really done much of anything. I was helping out with a lot of Nathan's shows, just doing little things, nothing really important. But I haven't really done anything like that these days with metal. I kind of haven't been paying much attention as far as that goes. So that's where I'm at now. But I had this long, fun, interesting experience. In Texas, I worked with John Cheek for a little bit too, and we put on Texas Mad Fest, and that was fun. That was mostly him. I think I had the idea, and then he actually had the footwork and the money behind it too. And he did a lot of the visa stuff for some of the international groups, and so that was really cool. That was a really cool experience. I learned a lot from that too. So I think the days of doing those kinds of things are behind me now. So.
John's good people. I love that old
That's really
fuck.
good people.
Um,
Yeah,
I need to probably call him. I've not talked to him in a few months, but he's good people. I miss talking to him on Facebook.
I do too.
Um, but yeah, so that's cool. Your path is kind of similar to mine. You know, not moving up here for music. 100%. It was kind of on the back burner because I knew what Nathan did in regards to shows and stuff like that. Because that's part of how him and I became friends. Was met him at Progpower 5, and then he would just, as he said one time, I know more about metal. I've forgotten more about metal than Eddie Trunk. So he kind of considered me as almost a consultant, where he'd call me at 2 or 3 a.m. and say, "Hey, man, this band is coming to the States, and I may be able to get them in Minnesota. Are they worth $3,000 on a Tuesday?" And I'm like, "Well, what are you thinking about selling tickets for?" And he's like, "Oh, I'd probably do this much." And I was like, I don't think they've got that much appeal, dude. And then there'd be times where like, "Motherfucker, you could pay them double and make the money, so fucking take it." Um, but that wound up leading to us becoming good friends, and him inviting me to move up here to run the movie theater for him. So, I kind of dropped everything I owned into a Penske truck and moved cross country to try something new, much like you did, moving from Michigan to Texas to try something new. And, you saying you should have checked into it more. It was fucking 2005 or 2006. It's not like the internet was super,
Yeah,
you know, full of information like it is now.
exactly. They had a legitimate enough website. It's just, sometimes things are prettier on the internet than they are in person.
Sure.
And so there was only so much I could look at. And, if worst came to worst, well, I mean, I made it, I made something happen. So I didn't have to do the job. I could quit any time. I did it only for 6 months because whatever. And I lived there for 3 years. So do the math.
Right,
So.
right. And then wind up.
But I had my own stuff going on too. I was busy with Harder Beat and Purple Sky, which was one of the Japanese magazines. I was writing for online webzines. I was meeting all these different groups and doing all these other things that I hardly even didn't even care anymore about the other thing that I moved there for. It ended up being more of a foot in the door, and that was a lot of fun. So I tell you, I did not like living in Texas, but some of my best times were in Texas. Some of my best memories. So.
Yeah, Texas has always been on the short list of places that I would be willing to live if I left here
Mm-hmm.
because
I really wasn't willing to live there, but I went anyways.
um I've spent a fair amount of time in Texas, going through on tour with To Die For, and then I dated a girl in Texas for a while and flew down a few times to see her and such. Um, and then Lance had a festival of his in Texas one time, and I'm driving down there again in April for Hell's Heroes 4 or Hell's Heroes 5 or whatever the fuck festival it is. All I had to hear was Satan and Candlemass are playing, and I was like, I'm there! Because I've seen Candlemass a couple times. Fucking love Candlemass, but I've never seen Satan live, and I have to see Satan live. And then who was the other band that was playing that Will's going nuts about? Dark Angel. I like Dark Angel too, but Will's the
Me
bigger
too.
Dark Angel fan between the two of us, and it sucks because the pre-party deal is Hellstar and Toxic, and I'm like, well, I could take or leave Hellstar. I've seen Hellstar, but I've never
Mm-hmm.
seen Toxic, and Toxic is fucking great. Think This is an incredible record. Um, and so I'd like to make that, but I just don't think I'm going to be able to based on driving down because without stops, just a straight drive, it's almost 18 and a half hours from here to Houston.
Jeez.
And Will be with me for the leg down, but coming back I'm by myself. And so I'm probably actually going to stop at Ian's house and sleep uh, on the way back because that's about the halfway point. And he was going to go, but tickets sold out, I think, just within a day or two of them going on sale because it was going to be him and Greg Hasbrook was going to go and my buddy uh, fuck, who else was going? I don't remember who else was going. And then another buddy of mine here from Minnesota is flying down. But there was another person, and I can't freaking remember who it was off the top of my head now. But he was they were all going to go, and only Will and I got tickets, as well as my other buddy up from up here who's going to fly down. But so Will's going to fly out here, jump in the car with me, and then we're going to drive down, and then he'll just fly back to Jersey from Texas when it's all over. But
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. It'll be cool to see a festival again, providing that, you know, shit doesn't happen. It's in Texas, so I feel pretty strong that it'll go versus, you know, being somewhere else. But, you know, with all these venues and you know, tour promoters and stuff like that are starting to require, you know, vaccination status or whatever to get into shows, you know, it's going to be tough to see how long that can get dragged out, because there's a certain segment of the population that's just not going to get vaccinated. And so I just hope that that doesn't cause stuff to shut down and such, because, you know, AEG announced today that all anybody who works any of their clubs or venues has to be vaccinated, as well as anyone who attends any of their shows. And AEG is fucking massive, as you know. And I think Live Nation was talking about doing the same thing, but leaving it up to artist discretion for their individual shows and stuff like that. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was going to say, so you were saying that you might not go to Progpower this year. Is that kind of one of the reasons, or was there some other reason that you might break your streak?
There was a very large falling out. You wouldn't have been as much into it as I would have been, because I ran one of the Progpower groups on Facebook. The biggest Progpower group on Facebook that wasn't the official Progpower page was I don't know if it was started by Mike Bendowitz, but I know he ran it for a super long time. And when he left Facebook, and he wound up not leaving Facebook, he was talking about wanting to do so, and so he was looking for someone to take on that group. And he passed it on to me because he knew he could trust me. So I ran that group, the Progpower USA unofficial group, for a while. And there was an incident that happened at Progpower. The last Progpower that actually happened, there was an incident that happened, and just it caused a rift in the community that was already kind of brewing. You know, two very distinct factions, and then, you know, people caught in the middle. But so a bunch of people left that group because of an incident that it started at Progpower, but it happened in the group a few months later, and it caused a huge rift. And so a bunch of people left the group and started this other group, and that group is, I don't want to malign everyone in the group, because there's some really good people in that group too, but that group was more of the, for lack of a better term, quasi to full-on cancel culture crowd. And so they were going hard against various people in the community, up to and including performers at the festival. Like, they were going hard in the paint against, like, Nick Van Dyke Redemption and stuff like that. And it just wasn't cool. Glenn finally snapped one day and got in the group and just kind of lambasted a bunch of people. Jen, his wife, did the same thing, and it was ugly. And with that happening, as well as some other stuff that went down, I got to find out about some people who I held in very high regard, who I considered myself friends with for a long time, kind of who they really were as people to a degree. And I cut a bunch of them out of my life, and I think it would be fairly awkward for me to go back down there and hang out and be around people that 2 years ago I was, you know, really close and friendly with, and now I haven't spoken to in going on a year.
Oh wow.
Um,
I didn't realize that. I kind of saw a little something like a little kerfuffle, but I just thought it was like somebody in one of the groups was being a jerk, and I didn't really catch much. I just caught a little bit of that, like much of the gist of it. I didn't realize it was such a like a bigger thing like that. I didn't really
yeah,
realize that. And
we can talk more about that off air. I
yeah,
don't want to air a bunch of dirty laundry,
sure.
just because I don't think it's responsible, and some of it is driven by the divisive political climate in this country, and I've said that I'm not going to bring that on this podcast. So,
Hmm.
that's why, just to kind of bring it up a little bit, I'm going to have a very hard time one day trying to navigate an Iced Earth episode because of how things
I know.
happened.
Yeah. Don't
This
have me
year
on that
with
episode.
everything, because
Don't have me on that.
that broke my heart.
Yeah, it's like no matter how iced earth is important to me, very, very important to me, and now I don't want to talk about it. So,
Yeah.
but you know what? I think just hearing about all of that, I'm sure that really sucks, and it would be really hard to see those people. But I think I would be doing me and you a disservice as your friend if I didn't say maybe you know screw those people. Go anyways. If you want to go and see the groups, don't let them hold you back. Sure, maybe it'll be awkward, but that's their problem.
But see,
Go and see the groups if you want to.
the thing about Progpower though is Progpower had become less and less about me watching bands and more about me hanging out in the vendor's room
Oh, okay.
and hanging out with people.
True.
And I would say that half the people that I would try to hang out with at Progpower now I would not speak to again if I had the choice.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I guess that does make a little more sense because you were always more in the vendor room and talking with people outside of watching the groups, whereas I was literally the opposite. I went in the vendor room maybe 3 times the whole weekend, and I spent the entire rest of the time either in the concourse area or actually in this performance area. So,
Yeah, a couple of festivals
I just
ago,
can't imagine. Like, of course, I love seeing the people, but like for me, in my perspective, I can't imagine the people being a reason not to go.
a
But
couple of festivals ago, I don't think I watched a single band.
oh wow. Yeah, then I can definitely see why maybe it's not so much of an appeal for you anymore. And
Yeah.
I guess I can't really talk because I haven't been for like the last 10 years, so
Right. And then,
I really shouldn't talk about
I would always try to see, a couple of songs from this band or that band or whatever, but rarely would I stay for a full set. The last full set I stayed for was Green Carnation.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so yeah,
That was a minute ago.
yeah, that was 4 years, I think, 3 years,
Yeah.
something like that.
Wow.
Um,
What's
so,
Lance gonna do without you?
I don't, again, I don't want to air any dirty laundry, but I don't know that Lance is going back.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a big deal.
I don't know that, but in little conversations that we've had about it, he wasn't completely sold on going back either.
Wow. All right.
So
Well, that's good to know. I mean, I've really been checked out from all of it for a while, and I mean, for a while I was checked out of all music, and then when I kind of got back into paying attention to following some artists, it hasn't been metal artists. So
sure,
I've really not been at all on the same page as anybody in anything that's going on with this. So I don't know what would even draw me there.
sure,
I don't know who is scheduled. I probably don't even know them anymore, and which is funny because part of the reason I lost my interest uh in a lot of music was everything that I knew at the time just started sounding the same. Every power metal group that came out, I was like, I'm bored with this. Every prog metal album that came out, I wasn't finding it. It's like, yeah, it's more noodling. I love noodling, but it's just more of it, you know.
well,
And I
gl-
don't know. I just kind of was getting bored, I guess, and so I just stopped caring. And some other things happened too, and I just was not really paying attention. And so now, it's funny to see that there are so many new groups when it's like the reason I was kind of getting distracted from it was because there were no new groups. Everything was kind of the same, and I felt like I was getting in a rut with it. And now there's all these groups that I don't even know anymore. Like, when did that happen? It's only been a couple of years, you know. But
well, Glenn and company put on a hell of a lineup that's coming up. I mean, that's why I'm torn about going. I may suck it up
yeah,
and go anyways, because like I said, Night Flight Orchestra dropped off, and I think another band dropped off. Actually, I know another band dropped off. I just can't remember who it was. But it sucks because I really wanted to see Night Flight Orchestra. Because are you familiar with them at all?
Not at all.
I think you would like them. It's Speed from Soilwork and Angelo from Arch Enemy and I forget the couple other guys that are in it. But they're basically doing Miami Vice metal. I mean, they come out. It is super 80s motif. Speed is actually singing, not screaming. I'll send you a song, and you'll have to tell me what you think. I mean, they come out in the 3/4 length suit jackets and everything else, and it's very, very, very synthwave.
So I was gonna say, it sounds like vaporwave or outrun mixed with metal. That would absolutely be right up my alley,
Yes.
Brent, 100%.
Yes.
So please do send that to me.
Absolutely.
And then I can cry that they're not on the festival. So.
I will absolutely do that. But so Thursday of next year, Nathan's Night, Darkwater, North Tail, The Ocean, Pain of Salvation, and Stradivarius.
Oh my God.
Oh no, you know what? I take that back. That's not Nathan's Night. That's Milton's Night. Nathan's Night is Wednesday. Mind Maze, Artificial Language, Power Quest, and Dream Evil.
Dream Evil.
Friday is Arch Echo, Aether Realm, Witherfall, Green Coronation, Jeff Scott Soto doing a Queen tribute set, and Conception. And
Nice.
then Saturday is Arion, not our Arion, another Arion, Arion from Finland. I didn't know who they were either. Thank You Scientist, Brothers of Metal, Ray Alder, Isan, and Torelli Leone Rhapsody.
Wait, really?
Yes. Like I said,
Okay.
It's a hell of a lineup.
Wow, shit. Half of those sounded familiar, like I did watch the lineup video, but I guess I've somehow forgotten about all of that because Isan and, did you say Luca Turilli's Rhapsody?
Yeah, it's Luca and Fabio together. So yeah, like out of that, I'd love to see Isan. I guess I wouldn't mind seeing Luca and Fabio Rhapsody. I'm not jumping up and down for it, but I guess I wouldn't mind seeing it. Isan, Stradivarius, and
obviously,
and Witherfall, Conception, Green Carnation. Although they obviously won't be doing Latter Day of Darkness, they'll be doing other stuff.
Sure.
And then Jeff Scott Soto doing a Queen set sounds intriguing as fuck.
That does sound really interesting. Because he performed before, he headlined before, right?
Yes, but he did stuff from all the bands
but he did his own stuff something.
Yes, he did stuff from bands that he had been in. As well as his own solo stuff. So it would be interesting to see him do a set of Queen favorites.
I'd be happy to see Pain of Salvation again, too.
Yeah, they've never done it for me.
They've so done it for me.
I think the brothers are pretentious as fuck. I think that's probably part of why I don't like them.
I think that's the thing, is I don't know them personally. Like, I don't know anything about their personalities. I just know Remedy Lane is a masterpiece. And the first time that I saw them, I'm just crying, just sitting there weeping in my seat. And it was much more moving than I anticipated it to be. And I won't forget that. But maybe I don't want to see them again because maybe it's one of those, like, where you see them again and they're not exactly what you expect, and then it ruins the original memory.
Sure.
I don't know.
The thing that pissed me off about them the most is, I think it was Daniel. When Bush was president, Daniel made some stand saying that they would never play in this country as long as George Bush was president. And it's like, dude, regardless of what you think about Bush, like, why are you punishing your fans?
And I know. I remember that because I remember falling in love with Pain of Salvation and then hearing that and being like, well, thanks a lot,
Like not even you have to prove you didn't vote for him and then we'll play for you. Not even that. It's just, I'm not coming to your country because of who your president is. It's like, well, that's kind of fucked up. I mean, I understand if he's stopping musicians at the border and chopping their heads off or something, then I'd be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't come here. But he's just a dude in the White House that, a good number of your fans probably didn't even vote for. So why punish your fans, but okay, weird flex, but
Yeah,
do what
like I
works for
get
you, I
standing up
guess.
for, what you want and what you believe, I guess, but like, yeah, you're also gonna hurt your fans at the
Right.
same time.
It
Who do you want to hurt more? Bush, who doesn't care, or your fans who do?
Right. I could understand
So,
if he were protesting something like, let's say the IRS, which the IRS wound up doing a little while later, having these just super high taxes on foreign artists coming in on their merch sales as well as whatever they were making at the gate and such. I can understand him saying, hey, as long as your IRS is doing this, it's not viable for us to be able to come over and make enough money when we could be making money elsewhere to provide for our families and stuff like that. It'd be like, that sucks ass, but I totally get it. But with that,
yeah.
it's just like, okay. I guarantee you George Bush doesn't know who you are.
Yeah.
So, whatever. But I think that just kind of soured them for me, and so I don't think I've ever been able to listen to them with an open mind. But I'm happy to
Sure.
try to do so because also at that time I wasn't a prog fan. I was a powerhead.
Yeah.
So maybe if you want to suggest a couple things for me from Pain of Salvation, I would be willing to give it a shot because
Nice.
people who I greatly respect fucking love them and hold them in very high esteem. So
Hmm.
maybe um, maybe I'll like them. I don't know, but
That's cool. I love that you're willing to give it a shot. I mean, I may not have liked everything that they've ever done, just because I don't know. I'm kind of a person where even though I'll say that I love a band very much and they're my favorites, but I really only listen to one or two albums. That's me. I'm that person
right,
because like even Dream Theater and Queensryche, like if I get an urge to listen to them, I'm gonna go straight for my favorite couple albums, spin it until I'm done, and then leave. And I still get excited about their new releases, of course, but I'll probably listen to it once or twice if it doesn't immediately grab me. I'll go back to the other thing and then come back to it later and give it another shot, and then over time it'll either become one of the albums that I always go to or it just won't and I won't even remember it. Um, and so, like with Pain of Salvation, for me, Pain of Salvation is the album Remedy Lane, and whether they exist inside or outside of that, I'm sure is all fantastic.
and I've
But
heard that about them. Remedy Lane, and then do they have a record called like Salt or something?
yep, they do. Yeah, I think that came out. It was either right before or right after. I think it was right after Remedy Lane. And it was all right. It was all right, but still, I was like, yeah, but I really want to hear Remedy Lane right now. So I put that on, and then, I just never go back to the other stuff because, except maybe once in a while, I might listen to, like I said, listen to it again a little bit, get familiar with it, digest it some,
Well, I
and
tell you what, I just added
but
Remedy Lane to my iTunes, so I will.
nice.
I'll try to give it a shot and see what I think.
It's weird and brilliant and emotional, and I love it. And I've cried
So,
through it several times, just like Guilt Machine. I just cried right through Remedy Lane.
well, I
So
mean,
good luck.
Light of Day, Day of Darkness is fucking weird too because
Yeah.
it's super calm and then super heavy and then super fucking Pink Floyd for like 10 minutes in the middle, and then it's got the over the top female almost a cappella moment because there's not really any music playing behind it, and then it goes back into the kind of calm, and then it's over, and it's like that record's fucking weird, but I love every fucking note of it. Um,
Yeah, that would be
so
Remedy Lane. Yeah, that Remedy Lane is on my. I'd say it used to be like top 5. Now it's maybe top 20, but
okay,
it's still there.
sure, yeah,
So, and considering the breadth of music that I have and know and am familiar with, being top 20 is a pretty good chance that I really like it. So,
sure, and I mean, I was talking about Desert Island Records for me the other day, and one of them I was talking about to a buddy of mine because he wasn't familiar with it, although he was familiar with some of the later more popular stuff. But I told him fucking Def Leppard High and Dry is one of the greatest records ever
nice.
made. It's so good, and it destroys everything else they ever did. Pyromania is
Well,
decent. Pyromania's got some great songs. Hysteria,
Hysteria.
I fucking hate. I know that it was a breakthrough record
Right.
for you, but no. Here's the thing. So, I was gonna interrupt your story, but then I forgot that Discord, you can't talk over someone else because it doesn't go through. So I just kind of sat back and let you talk because I wasn't gonna be able to get a word in edgewise anyways. But when you said Hysteria being one of the tapes that you listened to, I immediately harkened back to the very first tape that I ever got. And it was super nostalgic for me at the time. Now you couldn't fucking pay me to listen to it. Poison, Open Up and Say Ah.
Oh wow, yeah, no, I don't think I ever really listened to that in full.
Yeah,
But
I recognize that they're great musicians, but yeah, I can't do Poison. I just can't. And I had that tape. It was a gift or something. I don't remember how I got it, but god damn it, no. But back then, that tape wore my fucking cassette player out.
wow.
But yeah, now no, I'm good. I'm quite good. If I'm gonna listen to quote unquote glam, I'm gonna listen to fucking Cinderella or Bullet Boys or something like that. Something that actually kicked ass.
Mm-hmm.
So, well,
And it's funny because actually that Kiss Alive 3 album is one that I can't do anymore, even though it was one of my first favorite albums. I'm like, I just can't do it anymore. It's not that I hate it or anything, but it's just kind of, I'll never listen to it again. I can't get into them the same way that I did before, so I completely understand on that.
I don't know that I'm familiar with 3. I don't know
For
that
some
I've
reason,
listened
that
to.
was the one that made its way to me. I don't know. I never listened to 1 or 2,
I
but
was
I've
gonna
always
say
just loved 3.
I don't know that I've ever listened to any of them other than 1. But as far as I know, there's 4. I don't think they made a 5th, but there's definitely 4. Um, but I had I had Kiss Double Platinum on vinyl back in the day when I had my first vinyl collection. And then I sold them all before I moved out of the house in Maplewood and really upset myself by having done so. I had a bunch of stuff in there that I just simply cannot replace. I had everything Iced Earth had ever put out signed.
Oh, God.
Um,
Yeah, you can't replace that.
and I had a shit ton of Maiden. I mean, I kept very little. I didn't liquidate everything, but I went from probably having 150 records to having like 10. Well, no, more than that because I kept all my Priest. So I probably had closer to maybe 25, but 18 or 19 of that was Priest. So
Wow.
I kept my Vreed Milorg vinyl signed. I kept my Killers Murder 1 vinyl signed. I sold all my signed Anthrax and all that stuff. I've built the I sold both of my signed Annihilator records that I had. It wasn't Jeff that had signed them. It was Randy Black when they played Minnesota with Primal Fear. But I sold so much stuff, and I really wish I hadn't.
I only have 2 signed vinyl albums, and I keep wanting to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff, but then I feel like I'd have regret, just like you do, about some of the stuff that I can't replace.
Yeah, if it's something like that, it's one thing to sell a toy collection or something or other like that. I've got a bunch of pop vinyls and stuff like that I've thought about selling. That's not going to bum me out all that much, but those records that just are not replaceable, I get sick thinking about it because of what I got for them.
Oh, no.
I got so little money for them.
Don't think about it.
Yeah. Well, we're at about an hour, so we should probably start winding down.
Okay.
For the few people that listen to this, because it's certainly not many, anything you're doing that anybody on here might be interested in? I know you've got your Discord channel. That's actually where this kind of got started. I was a guest in your Shiny, which is a K-pop band, Discord fan channel that you and some others set up, and you had me in there on an ongoing series to where you're talking to them about metal and everything else, and you wanted me in there as sort of an expert to help complement your knowledge on it and teach the quote unquote plebs more about metal while being subjected to K-pop myself. And you guys can take away my metal card. I didn't completely fucking hate it.
Okay, you can have both cards next to each other in your wallet. It's okay. One does not erase the other.
My wallet is fairly full.
Nobody needs to take away your metal card.
But anything else you want to say or anything before we get off of here?
Well, I mean, just that, I have a couple of actually different Discord servers that I kind of help with, and, writing for, or I'm actually now a fandom ambassador too for this other thing called the honeypop.com, which is like a multi-fandom news source where they actually like approach fans and run everything through fans first instead of just being, a press release regurgitation website.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of really interesting content in there, and they've had me host a few things there so far. And then, yeah, the Shiny Discord and stuff, and involved with a lot of that. But, I'm not sure if your listeners will be interested in that, but, we're always, doing little series about, trying to dispel some of the negative myths about K-pop, because I think a lot of people hear that and immediately have some ideas that are probably actually not true. Just kind of like how a lot of people hear metal and have some ideas that are probably not true. And while I don't expect everybody to love both, there's a lot of places where they intersect, and it's just fun to try to explore those connections and see. And I ended up actually making a bunch of metal fans out of my K-pop friends, and so that
Yeah,
was pretty fun.
when
Um,
what's their name? E. Yeah,
yeah.
when E mentioned King Diamond, I kind of flipped my shit. I'm like, well, that's not an everyday metal person that the uninitiated would know about. So fucking props to you. Um, well, on that note, with my shit, you can listen to me and my fellow retarded co-host Will on the Bastard Cast every 2 weeks on anywhere you really find podcasts, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, if that still exists. I don't recall if that got absorbed into YouTube or not. Like I said, basically anywhere you find podcasts, you can find the Bastard Cast. You can find this podcast on any of those sources as well, with the exception of iHeartRadio, because they've got this stupid rule about where you have to have a podcast for 2 or 3 months before they'll even consider adding it. But on that note, yeah, nothing else really to say this week, so we're gonna get out of here.
Hey, this is Dr. Kill Drums from Sabotage, and you're listening to Hell Brent for Leather